What can be easily automated is the UI aspect of it. That's why I keep hammering the point of think about the underlying fundamental need and the value you deliver. The UI mockups, the wireframes are not the value you deliver, it's just an output. What you deliver is contribution to the outcome, to the impact the business brings, to the customer behaviors you're gonna change by understanding the users, the humans, and then purposefully surfacing the themes which can be acted upon to change their behaviors for a better or worse, or whatever you're gonna apply. Last video broke the internet, or at least broke the YouTube for design and UX and UI. I got quite a few different positive notes as well as negative comments, but that's totally fine. In the end of the day, that's how the internet works. One of the comments though was very interesting because it basically asked me to make a video on the future of UX and UI design. Now, this is a loaded request, of course, but let me share with you a few different takes or a few different ideas which you can then assemble and make your own prediction of what the future in UX and experience design and everything in between looks like. And so without fluffing too much, I'm gonna give you a few different sides and angles of what I've been pondering for my own past few years and trying to think exactly, hey, should I evolve my career in other directions? Should I further branch out into other areas like product management and everything in between? Because you could just go so many different directions in UX, right? You have service design, you have customer experience, you have product design now, you have all other bits which basically are morphing with each year. However, there are some fundamentals which still remain. Just like that pseudo-inflammatory or positive video, depends how you look at it, on UX and UI design and the issue of it, the UX is still fundamental. The actual need to understand the humans who interact with products or services or no services at all, someone who's a human in any process or flow is always going to be there. And that's what UX does fundamentally. It's not about producing a fancy UI or interactive bit or a mock-up or something. It's designing experience for people. So that is definitely going to remain, because as long as we have people around us, that's definitely going to be the case, and the demand for that is always going to be high. So it's almost like a meta skill which you can then apply to all the different bits like product management or wherever you want to head to. If we go and put on our time traveler's hat, maybe go 50 years in advance or 200 years or 300 years in advance, maybe we're going to be paired and companioned by some sort of AI and machines and robots around us. Maybe then there's not going to be a need for it, but knowing that we are shaping our solutions and the robots and AI to mimic humans, to mimic the factors, to mimic the psychology and behaviors minus the bad ones, I hope, there's always going to be a need for someone to come in and design an optimal experience for them or for yourself or for other beings. So this need for people to design experience is going to persist for years and decades and millennia to come. It's as simple as that. There's always going to be a demand for true user research, true user experience design, true human experience design. It doesn't matter what lens you're going to put on or what you're going to design. If you're going to design a brochure to be read or a service which has thousands of touch points in it and different products interconnecting together, or a customer experience which is all about selling things and marketing things to actual people, you know, with the user experience hat on it, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be a need. That's ultimately how I see the future. Having said that, one of the major things which definitely going to change in the years to come is the titles. For example, UX architect is no longer a role you see here and there, but it used to be such a massive thing. UX designer as a generalist is also something which you see less and less. Now you have user researchers and product designers, which almost like in parallel look like UX and UI designers back in the day. So there's a lot of specializations which are being bastardized by other disciplines as well. You might have now, let's say, instead of UX generalist and UI designer and business analyst and a product owner, now you might have just a product manager, UX researcher, and a UI designer, and maybe some engineering, forming these teams which basically share some of their responsibilities. So I think the responsibility of actual UX is definitely going to be shared going forward, and probably things which we take for granted now in certain environments and certain companies are going to be shared across. So maybe production of a wireframes is something which is going to be taken by someone else altogether, but it doesn't mean we're going to do a crappy job just because you're not doing it. So we need to be open-minded to allow that, as long as the UX is actually done by the book, meaning you research more than you design. You validate things more than you actually, come up with ideas and experiments. It's all about basing your decisions on the human factors, user needs, challenges, opportunities, answering them in a meaningful way. So specialism is definitely going to morph, but the actual need, again, is fundamental and it's going to remain there. And I think, what you have now or next year or in 5 years is going to be very, very different than what we have in a century from now. And I don't think you can fully automate the UX because connecting different dots is still a human-specific bit, and us understanding other humans, the empathy cannot be programmed, at least not yet. And this is almost like a key distinction of why we are going to be in such a need and in such a big demand. What can be easily automated is the UI aspect of it. That's why I keep hammering the point of think about the underlying fundamental need and the value you deliver. The UI mockups, the wireframes, are not the value you deliver. It's just an output. What you deliver is contribution to the outcome, to the impact the business brings, to the customer behaviors you're going to change by understanding the users, the humans, and then purposefully surfacing the themes which can be acted upon to change their behaviors for a better or worse, or whatever you're going to apply. So, but that visual layer, that last layer, if you take something like 5 Planes of User Experience by Jesse James Garrett, you're going to see that everything starts from this abstract strategy layer. And then you go bit by bit defining more and more until you arrive at the surface. And what's going to happen, and I can guarantee that, is that everything going top down is going to be automated more and more until it cannot get to automation anymore. More specific your work, more replaceable it is. It's simple as that. And that's what you need to be prepared for. And from a personal perspective, what I see and what I already have been pondering for so long is that I see a lot of creatives, a lot of researchers, a lot of scientific and product folk actually heading into contracting, into consultancies. I can definitely foresee that in the future, everybody's going to be their own firm, their own organization, their own sole trader, their own sole business representative. You are going to be a business acting with other businesses of one person, making this larger organization. So it's almost like becoming organization of organizations. I can guarantee that your work is going to become much more flexible because there's going to be less and less need to form these long-lasting mammoth-like structures, which kind of like, locks you in the perm position. I think there's going to be a big demand for more consultancy work, for almost like a sole person who's really, really good at what they do. Maybe they have some sort of skilled specialty expertise and they're going to be called upon to actually join a new team every time they do a project single purposely. And you see a lot of that already with like remote work. Let's say if pandemic hitting us, that was ultimate test that we can do that. You almost don't need to be part of a big organization as a perm. You already can function at the highest of levels if you just have internet connection, a laptop, and Zoom or Teams or whatever you're using to communicate with a team. A lot of people, especially more experienced designers, head that way because you reach a ceiling on all your technical skills and you kind of become like, oh, I could employ those 10 different skills or those 5 different skills in a specific scenario and I can charge a lot for them because I'm so experienced. And that type of ability to do that flexibly is exactly why people go for more contracting or consultant roles, because you can earn so much more resources or, in this case, money for the services you produce if you are very, very experienced or like, senior enough. And I strongly believe that in the next half a decade or so, everybody, or at least majority of the people of the workforce is gonna be outsourced or like individual companies coming together again to solve problems. tools as needed. Again, the automation is going to dictate that. The outsourcing is going to dictate that. Different needs from the companies and their customers are going to dictate, among many other factors like technology and metaverse and Web3 layer and everything in between. And on that note, the perfect segue into technology and developments around us is all the emerging tech, or tech which used to be emerging a few years back, but still is kind of getting traction before it becomes mainstream. And it takes even decades for it to become almost like a household thing, which people don't bat an eye because it's like, yeah, I've seen it before. It just powers so many different things and solves so many different things that we don't even need to talk about it, right? Like internet, let's say. This next point is from my book, Get Into UX, where I'm asking people who read this book, by the way, do pick it up. It's out as an ebook. The paperback is coming up shortly as well, within weeks from publishing of this video, I hope. In that book, I'm asking people to ideate on the future of their careers and where is it heading. Because again, UX is going to be fundamental. Doesn't matter where you apply it or from what perspective, from research or design. Maybe you're again going to be your own firm, so you can kind of pick your tools as you need to. Like, hey, I'm going to apply user research for this specific role. And hey, I'm going to apply UI design for this specific role, and switch it up and, you know, be just your own boss ultimately. And in that book, I'm asking, here are the key developments around you. Like, there is political and economical, there's social, there's technical. Think about those things because they're coming up. And chances are you are gonna have to work on some projects within those buckets. So for example, from a social perspective, cashless society, already there. You might be working already there. Social causes are always going to be there and always going to be morphing and evolving. Gig economy, generational changes. In technical side, again, open data, telematics, NFTs, cloud-based blockchain, biometrics, robotics, voice interface, drones, brain-computer interfacing, big data, space logistic tech, satellite and space tech like 5G, 6G and to come, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, electric vehicles, and everything in between from tech side. And there's more things to come. Like, I could even now put a metaverse here because now is becoming mainstream. And you've seen Facebook rebranding themselves Meta exactly for this reason, because it's to come and it's going to be everywhere. It's unavoidable. You could be part of that. Political and economical side is also quite simple, you know, big tech corps, supply chains morphing because of different tests. What I say tests is like pandemic was ultimate test if we could do something with our needs and with our demands of the markets and people in different areas and regions, and we can do, and we tested it to an extent, is going to improve even further. Precision farming, new material discoveries, shared mobility, smart cities, renewable energy, among many other things. You're definitely going to be working on some of these. Again, pick the book up because you can then kind of think about it, follow the exercise in the book, exactly how to use this. I highly recommend it. And this is almost a necessary thing to do, be it junior or entry-level designer, or be it that you are a senior already or a lead or head of. You kind of have to think about the future. You're gonna need to compete with other people if we are gonna become almost like a single companies or single organizations trying to come together. On that note, just to finish off, you take something like design thinking, which has been for so many years around. It's still being applied and is shaping different methodologies like design sprints and features thinking, among many other frameworks, all still based on the same framework, same methodology of different steps taking through human centricity and empathy and everything in between, trying to understand who the users are, who the people, actual people are, what their needs are, challenges, and then solving it in a very structured way, which provides you with enough evidence that you should be proceeding in certain way or the other way. That's what ultimately gonna persist. The labels, the titles, we're all gonna morph. For example, myself, I had the title of experience designer because I was doing service design and customer experience design and product design and user research, everything in between. Chances are I'm gonna morph and develop further, maybe gonna have a different title going forward. It doesn't really matter. We're all makers of experiences, especially in this field. And so you need to label yourself as an experience maker, as an experienced researcher or designer, you name it. You ultimately need to take that fundamental framework of how we solve issues and take it into the future. It doesn't matter where you apply it or to what marketing level and how you label it. What matters is that fundamental piece of UX design. Ultimately, the reason why I wanted to make this video is so that you can think for yourself and come up with your own ideas. If you have any immediate thoughts, leave them down below. I really want to see exactly what you think about the future of UX, UI, research, everything in between. Leave them down below.